Welcome back to Asia in Focus, where we analyze the shifting tides of power across Asia. Today, we dive into a question that has puzzled many observers. Why has China, known for its assertive actions across the South China Sea, been unusually restrained when it comes to Vietnam?
That's a fascinating question. The short answer is deterrence, diplomacy, and discipline. Vietnam has built one of the most capable and resilient coastal defense systems in Southeast Asia. Its philosophy is simple. If you want peace, prepare for war. Since the 2014 Hai Yung 981 oil rig crisis, Vietnam has quietly upgraded its radar networks, submarine fleet, and missile systems, particularly the Kilo-class submarines and Bastion P anti-ship missiles. These capabilities create what strategists call a denial zone, an area too costly for any aggressor to challenge directly.
So is this why China tends to avoid direct confrontations with Vietnam, even while pressing others like the Philippines?
Exactly. China's approach to maritime disputes is highly calculated. With the Philippines, Beijing can test the limits, knowing Manila often leans on Washington for protection. That creates a predictable pattern. The Philippines calls for U.S. support, and China uses the standoff to measure American resolve. However, Vietnam is a different equation. Hanoi maintains strategic autonomy, neither a client state nor an easy target. Any misstep against Vietnam could trigger a regional backlash, especially as global trade routes pass through its maritime zones. Beijing understands that Vietnam is not just defending territory, it's defending credibility. Losing face to Vietnam, a smaller neighbor with a long history of resistance, would carry huge symbolic damage for China's domestic image. So, deterrence isn't only military, it's psychological and political.
Let's look at the bigger picture. How does this dynamic fit into the broader rivalry between China and the United States?
The South China Sea is the pressure valve of global geopolitics. For China, it's about breaking free from the first island chain, the line of U.S.-aligned territories from Japan to the Philippines. For the U.S., it's about maintaining open sea lanes and preventing China from dominating Asia's heartwaters. America's Indo-Pacific strategy hinges on partnerships. Vietnam, though not a formal ally, is a critical piece of that puzzle. The US, Japan, Australia, and India, through frameworks like the Quad, all quietly support Vietnam's modernization. The support isn't just military, it's economic resilience, supply chain relocation, and maritime training. Washington knows that a stable, self-reliant Vietnam serves as a silent anchor for regional balance. China sees this too, and that's precisely why it treads carefully. A direct clash with Vietnam could inadvertently strengthen U.S. influence in the region, the very outcome Beijing wants to avoid. Instead, China focuses its provocations on softer fronts, disputed reefs near the Philippines, or intimidation campaigns around Malaysia's drilling operations. These are calculated moves designed to test boundaries without sparking a wider coalition against Beijing. Meanwhile, Vietnam plays its cards smartly. It hosts international defense exhibitions showcasing its indigenous missile and radar systems, signaling that it can stand on its own feet. It quietly expands ties with Japan and India, diversifying its defense partnerships while keeping communication open with China. This balanced approach, assertive but not provocative, is what makes Vietnam a unique stabilizer amid regional uncertainty.
Let's imagine a worst-case scenario. Tensions spiral out of control. What would happen if a real clash broke out in the South China Sea?
If conflict erupted, China would likely start with a small-scale provocation, perhaps around a remote reef, aiming to test reactions. But it would miscalculate the domino effect. Any disruption to global shipping would immediately alarm the US, Japan, and Europe. Economic sanctions, Joint patrols and diplomatic condemnation would follow. China's vast export economy would face blowback not from one rival, but from a coalition of trading partners. Vietnam's response, however, would remain measured. It would defend itself firmly under international law, invoking UCLAWs, mobilizing the Coast Guard, and securing regional support. But it would not escalate recklessly. This restraint is what defines Vietnam's maturity. Over decades, Vietnam has learned that moral legitimacy can be more powerful than raw might. In past incidents, Vietnamese fishermen rescued Chinese sailors after collisions, a gesture that spoke louder than propaganda. Such humanity reinforces Vietnam's soft power, strength rooted in dignity, not aggression. It tells the world, we are ready for peace, but not afraid of defense.
That's a rare mix of strength and empathy.
Indeed. In today's Asia, power isn't measured only in weapons, but in the ability to balance restraint and readiness. Vietnam embodies that balance. It's becoming what analysts call the quiet power of Southeast Asia, shaping the game without shouting, commanding respect without confrontation. In the end, China's challenge is not just Vietnam's defenses, it's Vietnam's composure. And that's why Beijing provokes others, but rarely Hanoi. Because Vietnam, through patience, prudence, and principle, has become the one player in the South China Sea that even great powers must calculate around.
Powerful words. To our viewers, if you found this analysis insightful, remember to subscribe, share, and leave a comment below. Here on Asia in Focus, we bring you clarity amid complexity, one story at a time.